if you go back maybe, 4 to 6 months on physical silver, the premiums were just crazy. I'm talking 75, 80%. And now they've come down to, in some cases, maybe 25 to 30%. It's still not what you'd consider normal because those premiums in normal times are probably 12 to 15%, but they are a lot closer to normal. And I think that, there is a lot of, I think there is a lot of variability over time. And this is very much sentiment driven. Sad to say, but perhaps to some extent, the premiums have come down because maybe you have people that are looking to liquidate something that is liquid, right? That holds value and are bringing their physical silver, cashing it in and, making use of that cash to make rent, to pay for groceries, all sorts of things, because, it's all, it kind of makes me laugh when people say, oh, look, the rate of inflation has come down from 9% to say 4%. But are they forgetting that still means that in the last month, prices are still 4% higher than they were prior? I mean, we've had this, 5 to 8 to 9%, increase in prices, and we continue to get increase in prices, but at a slower rate. Just for people to understand a little bit why we have premiums, as I say, again, if we stick to what may be normal, 12 to 15%. In physical silver, for example. So the spot price on silver might be $22 or $23. And if you're paying, say, somewhere around $27 or $28 for a silver coin, well, there are a lot of things that go into it. First of all, the smaller the silver piece, the more the value of the work to create it has to go into, right? And if you compare it to gold, because a single ounce of silver is that much less costly, yet it's similar amount of work as it is to create an ounce or a coin, a mint coin for gold. You're going to have to distribute the costs over a smaller value, and so therefore you have these higher premiums. You've got these things called seigniorage, which is the mint actually producing the coin. You've got distribution. You've got the profits that the dealers want to make. And so when you add all of that up, it does make sense that you're paying higher premiums for silver than you are for gold, for example. When the price of silver wakes up, and it does, because it goes through these long periods of being very quiet, and then it just absolutely explodes higher. And when it does that, they're going to gap up. There's not enough supply of the shares, as much as they issue shares to raise money. There won't be sellers. There'll be a lot of buyers and no sellers, and the prices will gap up, and then people will feel they've missed the boat. Well, now is absolutely the time to be looking this, and I know we all say it. All of us who are in the industry, and especially in the, involved in juniors, are going to say it, that this is opportunity, but it absolutely is. And you just have to look at the first cycle, which was, I believe, that only the first half of the secular bull, which started in about 2001. Silver went from $4 to $49 in the space of 10 years. That's just tremendous. So
huge.
You've got, and it doesn't mean you have to take outsized risks. It's all about controlling risk. And this does not have to apply to anyone in particular. Everyone hopefully knows themselves enough to decide how to balance a portfolio in terms of silver investments. I think, somewhere around 10% at a minimum for silver allocation. And then from there, I go to things like silver ETFs. So when I say ETFs, I mean mining ETFs. You've got a couple of larger ones or larger cap ones, and you have a couple of junior ones. And since these are internally diversified, if you combine producers and royalty companies and ETFs, for me at least, that can make up about 50% of the overall silver portfolio allocation. And then from there, I'd say 20% to developers and growing developers, and then another 20% to explorers. And that's obviously where you've got your highest risk and your highest potential upside. But for me, that's what I feel is a reasonable way to kind of balance that portfolio. I think that it's all driven by the prices of the metals. And when they wake up, that will excite the market. And people don't realize, they look at silver as an example and they say, okay, $22, $23, that's still half of what its all-time high is, whereas gold is close to its all-time high still, in nominal numbers at least. So they're just not excited. But it all depends on when you got in. And if you look at silver going back, say, 3 years or 4 years, silver is actually about 40% above, and has maintained an average of about 40% above its prior 3 years. So if you say, 2013 to about, no, let's say, sorry, more like 2016 to 2019, silver averaged in there probably closer to about $15 to $16. And now we're at $22 or so. We've been between, say, 22 and 30 for the last 3 years almost. One of the appeals of silver is this sort of FOMO aspect, the fear of missing out. And I think that's why silver gets explosive later in cycles, is that gold is king. It always has been. It always will be. And people follow it a lot more closely. And that's why you have all these gold newsletters. But when gold goes, and it will, and it goes to 2,500 or 3,000, and people will start to pay attention, and they'll feel like they've missed the boat, and they'll say, wow, I can't buy an ounce of gold at $3,000. What else can I do?
Yeah.
And if silver is $40 or $50 at that point, it's going to look exceedingly cheap compared to gold.
Yeah.
And exceedingly affordable. And even if the premiums are at 50% or 60%, it's still extremely affordable for an ounce of silver versus gold. Even if you're paying a high premium on a couple of silver ounces, just go out there, do a little bit of research, go to one of these big name dealers, order a couple of silver coins online from a recognized mint, and have those in your hands. It's a really small first step, but I think that it's an important first step, and it really gets you, to relate to what silver is and to the silver market. And I think it'll pique people's interest, and they will want to learn more, and have a look at the book. I mean, I really did go out of my way to make it not academic, but readable, and to give readers a complete overview of the silver market, understand where it comes from, what it, why it's brought us to where we are today, the history going back thousands of years. Silver has been money for longer than gold has. It's been money for almost 5,000 years. And it's really only in the last 50 years or so, since the late 60s or 70s, when the US removed silver from its coinage, that we haven't had silver as part of our money. Silver is the name for money in more than 14 different languages around the world.